So let me introduce you to my tribe, to the women that helped make this adventure happen. Drea, Marcy, you can raise your hand, Becky, Heather, Mirren's not here. Maybe we did scare her away. She's in South Africa right now. So Saturday morning, we awoke to a beautiful sunshine to head out to Silver Peaks. We were going to try a new route and access Silver Peak from the southeast, like any of us had any idea what that meant. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by white. I should mention that we were following a route, and I use that term loosely, as the crow flies. It does not always translate into actual hiking terrain, does it, ladies or David? Even with our light day packs, we would push on. We thought we would make great time. For more than 4 hours, we bushwhacked our way to the peak, breaking through deep snow, steep climbs, thick bush, gnarly descents. Sorry, it's hard to juggle both. Wet feet, log over creek crossings, broken poles, slot canyons, you name it, we got it. We were on all fours at times. Okay, oh yes, and sliding down on our bums, slipping, sliding, falling, and we even had a minor flesh wound. Well, at one point, David mentions to me that this is the most technical route that he has ever taken a group on. What the hell? Like, David, we're novices. Oh, nonetheless. This amazing group of women rose to the challenge, and we supported one another every step of the way. There was no drama, no egos, no competition. It was pure support for one another with our trusty guide alongside of us. Had I had the energy, I may have pushed him off that ridge.
General maintenance for an axe. So the first thing you want to do is you want to clean the head. So to clean the head, I would use vinegar, a green pot scrubber, a metal brush. Steel wool, I mean, I have it in there in case you ever needed it. I've never needed it. I find between the green pot scrubber and the wire brush, that's all I really have ever needed. So you want to just basically scour the head with a bit of vinegar and the wire brush or whatever your pleasure is, the green scrubber. Be careful not to cut yourself. Always be aware of where that blade edge is. Keep your fingers clear of it. Once it's all scrubbed, give it a rinse with some water. And once it's rinsed, give it a dry. Once it's dry, you can apply some oil to the head. So that would prevent the head from rusting. To maintain the handle, things I would suggest for this are some kind of wood oil. We're fans of Badger's hemp oil. It's food safe as well, so you can use it on cutting boards or spoons. It's nice. It doesn't yellow the wood as much as linseed. We're fans of that oil. Handle wax, some kind of sheath conditioner, sheath cream for the leather, and then some blade oil and a piece of paper towel. So make sure your handle's clean and dry before you start. And then you want to oil the handle. Just apply a layer of oil. What I like to do is actually mummify the handle like this with a paper towel soaked in oil. And then put this out. The best time to do this is in the summer, when it's a hot summer day. Leave it out, out in the yard with the sun beaming down on it. If you're doing it in the winter, you can stick it in a window where you're getting sunshine beating down. Something to warm the wood, so we'll open the pores of the wood and absorb the oil in better. Once that's done, wipe it down. And then hemp oil does take longer to cure than, say, boiled linseed. So you're probably talking a couple of days to let that fully cure. Once it is fully cured, it's a good idea to wax. So you'll see here I'm waxing the exposed ends where there's exposed grain. So that would be on the bottom of the knob swell, and then also up here on the top of the handle. Those are kind of the Achilles heel on any wood handle. The handle length itself is, once you've oiled it, it's kind of looked after, but this exposed grain, that's kind of where things happen. Things get loose, that's where the moisture is going to penetrate, or it's going to evaporate out and shrink the head. So keeping that well waxed is a very good idea.
So I also revised the teepee at that time, added a little bit of flair to it. But I got some plastic coated canvas. Now, one of the problems that I was having with the teepee, with the canvas, is that the snow would melt, and it would melt right into the canvas, and then I would have these big chunks of snow and ice that were stuck. So I would try to fold it up to take it home, and the thing would be massive because I couldn't fold it up because there were these big chunks of snow and ice that have, decided that they were going to come along too. And I didn't want that. So I added the plastic coated canvas to the bottom to make it slippery so that that wouldn't stick. And that worked great. So I took the teepee out on its first backcountry trip in January of 2016. And I didn't go in far, just about 10 or 15 minutes. I was in Algonquin Park. And it worked great. Now, the thing was, I didn't go alone. I went with my friend Ashley from Young Outdoors. And as you can see by the sleds, they were fully packed. Well, there's 2 of them there, right? That's not one person. That's 2 people with all that gear. Well, on the way out, I said to my friend Ashley, I want to take the teepee, I want to take the poles, I want to take the stove, and most of the gear, put it on my sled. I need to know if I can do this by myself. So I loaded up the sled, I clipped the harness on. It was kind of like that girl in Titanic. I was pretty much like this, and nothing moved. Nothing. I was just standing there going, oh boy. So I gave it a good run, and I did make it out by myself, but my heart broke a little bit that day because I knew that there was no way that I was going to be able to backcountry camp with this teepee by myself unless I made 2 trips. So I had to figure something out. So I made a plan. I figured out a pattern of how I could make a very small hot tent just for me for the backcountry. A very simple design. I found out after that's called a pyramid design. It's just 4 triangles. And I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work. So I made the pattern to size on paper. I cut it out. I taped it together. I was like, well, this looks like it might work. Okay. But I still wasn't really sure. I didn't want to go out and spend all that money and then find out it wasn't going to work. So I had a canvas tote bag laying around, and I cut out some pieces. I labeled them all. I did it exactly how I would do it in a smaller scale. And I actually sewed them together. And here's my little prototype. And it actually worked. So I thought, you know what? I think this might work. I'm going to give it a try.
It's a typical night in camp, right? So usually we would get to camp. One person would start working on packing down the snow, getting ready to set up the tent. Other 2 people would start getting firewood, right? So we get the tent set up, get that fire going, and then start leapfrogging. The next person would start boiling water and then cooking dinner.
We used the Seek Outside nylon teepee tent, so it had 20 stakes in a big, was it about 10 feet? About 10 feet, Eric? Something like that around?
Yeah, it was about 10, 12 feet across.
Across,
right?
yeah.
And so the cool thing with our tent was, and Seek Outside was one of our sponsors, so we're very thankful to them for that. Our tent and stove weighed, I think, just over 12 pounds, right? So it was still nylon.
It was crazy light.
Yeah, it was crazy light. Super ultra light. Probably not the most durable, especially with our speed holes when we were done from the ambers coming out the chimney. But it worked really well. And because it was a bigger tent, we literally just set it right up on the ice, right? So we get to camp, 1 person or 2 people before we took our skis or our snowshoes off, just like you see them doing in the mountains, setting up camp. You pack all the snow down. That snow then can consolidate. It can firm up. And then you can, 20 minutes later, you can walk around without skis or snowshoes on. You can just walk around with your boots, right? So it kind of firms up. And yeah, the tent was awesome, right?
I also wore some traditional gear, and everyone else wore some light, new, cool stuff. So I looked like an old fart. But my mom made that.
Yeah, but it was neat seeing a lot of the old technology and the old kit compared to the new kit, right? And it was interesting that there was very little difference between the 2.
Well, it works. It still works,
oh,
guys. Yeah. Don't let anyone fool you.
Okay, well, that's there. Leather gloves and working with fire. If you're using open fire and you have synthetic gloves, you'll quickly learn why synthetic gloves are not good. So cheap work gloves work excellent, and to make them waterproof, if it's minus 10 to 0, everything you touch with your gloves will melt snow because you're working hard and you're venting heat. And so a way to keep your gloves drier is to rub snow seal into them, which has beeswax, and then heat it in with a hair dryer or a heat gun. And it'll actually toughen the leather as well. The gloves will last longer and they'll be more waterproof. Hot tenting. We're living, I think, also in a golden age of an explosion of new materials and designs of tents, which we've seen in the show. I use snow trackers, so I'm going to show those. But I used to do this for years, and this is stupid. This is a very weak pipe design, and I don't know why I did this. The bipod is pretty good. It's leaning in. It's on the second pipe there. If a snow bomb hits it, it's pretty solid, but it can teeter in that way. The height is good. The smoke will go over the tent, so that's all good. But I don't know why I did that. Now, on a bigger 5-inch pipe, I actually singed another snow trucker I had right there above the welding cloth, and any snow bomb coming in, knocking this in, can threaten this area. I've already singed the tent. So that's wrong for my style. This is right. And I noticed the campingchristina.com, you had that same, you had this design here. You had the elbow in the stove jack. This is much stronger. It's not going to singe or burn that part of the tent. Bipod could be leaning in a bit better. It's centered in there. So I recommend just getting your elbow, if you have this style of tent, putting the elbow right there. That's very strong. It's not going to go anywhere.